Alright, so up next is the statistics question. This will always be number 5 on the paper, and it's an easy way to get marks as well. It's a whole question you're going to get. You either have to draw a graph or read off a graph like we're doing in this question. You'll have to find probability and different basics of statistics. So here we have a group of 100 students. So it's out of 100, mass versus the amount of students we have on the cumulative frequency curve. And you know, with the cumulative frequency curve, it has that nice slight S shape that you see in here. And the first part is using the cumulative frequency curve, we want to estimate the median. So again, we have to draw lines on the graph. So the median is really the corresponding x value. So my answer is going to come from the x-axis for the median to half of the total frequency. So the total frequency is how much the graph went up to. They already tell me it's 100 people. So half of 100 is 50. So at the 50 mark, I'm just going to draw a line across 50 because it's half of 100, only because that was the total frequency. If the total frequency was 80, we would have find half of 80, 40. And this one is half of. And the minute I hit the graph, I'm going to draw that straight line down. And then I just read that off. But that's not 3.1, by the way. You have to know how to read off a graph. Let me check. If this was 1, so that's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. This is now 1.5. So it's twice as far away. So 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, 10. So each of these blocks is really 0.2 units. Just like here, each of these is not 1. This can be 1 person, 2 persons, 3 persons, 4 persons, 5. No, it won't line up. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So this median will be 3.2 grams when I read it off my graph. So there's one thing to actually draw it on your graph. Then there's the next thing to make sure you read off the graph properly. Don't always assume each one is 1. Do your check and make sure it's making sense. Second part, they want the upper quartile. So they really break up the diagram into quarters. That's why we call them quartiles. The median is really the middle quartile, which is 2 out of 4. That's why we call it a half. But the upper quartile is 3/4 of the total frequency. So it's really 3/4 of 100. Only because this question out of 100, by the way. If it was a different number, we have to find 3/4, whatever that number is. So 3/4 100. So we're doing the same thing at the 75 mark. I'm going to draw my lines across. I already draw it in this one here. So you draw your line across, and when you draw your line across, it's coming down to hit 4.3. So from 75, the minute you hit the graph, you draw it down. So it will be at 75, which is between 74 and 76. The minute you hit the graph, you draw it down. And like I said, it's going to be 4.3 grams when you draw that across and draw it down, because it's falling in between the lines. So even though they didn't say it, to get the semi-interquartile range for the next part, that's really the upper quartile, which we just found as 4.3 grams, minus the lower quartile. So the median is half, the upper quartile is 3/4, the lower quartile is 1/4. So we have to find the 25-point mark. And at the 25-point mark, that's the 25-point mark. Draw a line immediately when you hit your graph. You draw it down and read that off. I got 2.3 when I did it the first time. So here we're going to work out to 2.3 grams. So to get the semi-interquartile range, I have interquartile range and semi-interquartile range. Interquartile range is just upper quartile minus lower quartile, like how you normally find the range, highest minus lowest. Semi-interquartile is the interquartile range divided by 2. So that's 4.3 minus 2.3. So that's 2.0 grams divided by 2. Or just 1 or 1.0. Right? It's just little formulas to remember. Again, they're using the quartiles more than just the median. Before this, they normally just bring the median. The upper quartile and lower quartile, they're starting to bring the multiple choice as well. So you'll see that when we're doing some of the multiple choice papers. Next part, the number of students whose estimate is 2 grams or less. So 2 grams or less mean these are the grams. So I have to find 2 grams and extend my graph up. So again, I did it in my next sheet already. I find 2.8 grams. That's this line here is 2.8 grams just before 3. When I extend it and extend it across, I got, that number there, which is 1 block before 40, which is, since we counted in 2s, it will be 38 people. So 38 people had a score of 2.8 grams or less, because that's what they asked for this part, right? The number of students whose score is 2.8 grams or less. I find 2.8 grams, which is just before 3 since we counted in 2s. And I do the reverse. I extend it up. The minute it hit the graph, I extend across and I read off that number there. And all of these people, which is from 0 to 38, scored 2.8 grams or less. Our next addition to this question, they had a table using the cumulative frequency curve on page 18. So we're still using this graph here. I want to fill in the table. So from 0 to 2 had 20. So from 0 to 2, it went up to 20. And now we want to go from 2 to 4. So 2 to 4, it started off at 20 and 4 went up 2, and you have to read that off there. That is 68. Again, you have to know how to read off the graph. 4 hit the graph here and I go across. So that's all these things they're testing to make sure you can hit off the graph. So here goes up to 68. And then I do the same thing again. Sorry, I make a mistake. I just went from here to here, which is just from 20, because that's where here stop off from. 20 to 68, so they want this number here. So from 20 to 68, here going to be 68, take away 20, here going to be 48. And same thing now, from 4 to 6, we know we're stopping off at 68 here. So from 4 to 6, 6 went up to here. And we're going to read that number off. It looked like it in between 92 and 94, so here going to be 93. So this one jumped from 93 to 68. So 93 minus 68, 25. And I'll know if I have my numbers correct because the total frequency is supposed to be 100. And when I add it up, 20 at 40, 68 at 25, 93 add 6, which would have been what this jump from 6 to 8 would have been from 93 to 99. And then from 99 to 100. So it is adding up to 100. Right? So again, they're trying different ways to make you learn to read off the graph, because reading off the graph important, and there'll be 1 mark for each of those pieces. And the last part is usually the probability piece, which is seen here. Student is chosen at random. Find the probability that the student estimated the mass to be greater than 6 grams. So greater than 6 grams means we're not including 6 grams, is above 6 grams. So based on the graph on the table, this is above 6 grams because it's not equal to 6 grams, so it's above 6 grams. So this part of my table is above 6 grams. So we have 6 plus 1, 7 people. And again, probability always had to be about how much people we was looking at. We was looking at 100 students, and we're going to see that here as well. So 7 out of the 100 had a mass to be greater than 6 grams. So that's one part. We're going to look at one more just to finish off. So our next one without a graph. I think the one Ms. Deoki Singh might be doing may have a graph in it. When she doing, if I could get her to do a live session next week. So 60 students took an algebra test. So again, key number there. Everything going to total 60. And had 15 multiple choice questions on the test. So this obviously is the questions on the test. And these are the marks that the students got on the test, right? The number of scores. So what you notice immediately about the table, the lowest score was 8. Nobody scored less than 8 out of 15 on the test. That might come up or it mightn't come up. But you realize it didn't start from 0, meaning nobody scored 0 on the test. In fact, nobody scored 7 and under on the test. Everybody scored from 8 to 15. And they're telling you how much people scored each amount. So the first part is, again, reading off information from a table. The number of students who scored exactly 13 correct answers. So these are the correct answers. 13 correct answers. How much people scored 13 correct answers? 11 students scored, or 11 people scored 13 correct answers. The modal number answer means the mode. The mode is the number that occurs the most. So which answers occurred the most? Now don't get fooled and say, hey, look, 15 is the most. No. Which answer occurred the most? 6 people scored 8. 14 people scored 9. That's how you read it. 2 people scored 10, so on. So which people scored the most answers? The 14 is the biggest on this side. That don't mean 14 is the answer. It means 14 people scored this number the most, because that's what they want. The modal number of correct answers. So my answers had to come from here. 9 was the most popular score because 14 people, more than any other score, got 9. So the mode will be 9 correct answers, because they wanted correct answers, not people, right? The hardest part of this question is the median, because the median is the middle, right? How I find in the middle using the table though? Well, we know we have 60 people. And when we have an even amount, if you remember how the median is work. So let me look at it with an easier question. So if you want to find the median at 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7, the median is the middle number. We have 5 numbers here. You pay off the ends. It must be in ascending order. So the median would be 4. But if we have an even amount of numbers, that we say we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When we start paying off, if we pay off these 2, you're going to cancel out everything and do end up with a median. So we have to find the average of the middle 2 numbers once it's an even amount. So 3 plus 4 divided by 2 7 over 2, 3.5 would have been the median. That's just some extra information there. The reason I'm explaining that is we have 60 people, meaning we're not going to get exact middle. And worse yet, we have a table. So to get the middle of 60, we have the first 30 people, and then we have 31 to 60. So what we really want is the middle here, the 30th entry and the 31st entry in my table. How are we going to get those entries though? So we start counting. We start at 0, and then by the time we reach here, we build up to 6 people, because that's the first 6 people. 6 at 4, by the time we reach here, at the end of 9 marks, we build up to 14 at 6, 20 people. By the time we reach 10 marks, 20 at 2, 22 people. By the time we reach 11 marks, 22 at 6, 28 people. By the time we reach 12 marks, 28 at 2, we reach 30 people. By the time we reach 30 marks, 31, 30 at 11, 41 people, 41 at 9, 50 people, 50 at 10. Obviously, by the time everybody score, we have that. So what this really means is, these are the first 6 people scoring 8, and then we had the next 14 people scoring, so the first 6 people score 8 marks each, and then the next set of people, 14 people score 9, and so on. So at the 30th entry, 12 now finish, and at the 31st entry, because up to here was 30, we start in 13 marks. So the 30th entry would have been 12 marks. That would be the last person scoring 12 marks up to here. And when we start the next one, we have 11 people scoring 13 from the 31st entry to the 2nd to the 4th, all the way up to 41. So to be 12 plus 13 over 2, 25 over 2. And like I said, this is the hardest part, because you realize it was a little more technical than the others. And that's how the median tends to be, have a little more work in. So 12.5 correct answers would have been the median, and that would be how you find it. The last part, like I said, they always tend to bring up probability. The probability that a student chosen at random had at least 12 correct answers. You have to know what the English means. At least 12 means 12 and up. So 12 and up means, looking at my table, this is 12 and up here. Those are the marks that scored 12 and up. I want the people. So these are the people here that scored 12 and up. So I add up those numbers and those numbers. I just write it down. 2 plus 11 plus 9 plus 10. Those are the students that scored 12 and up. 11 at 9 is 20, 32. But again, a probability can't just be a number. It has to be a fraction. So it's 32 people out of 32 students out of all the students in the class. How much students we had in the class? 60 students. That's where those numbers are going to come in from. And I could leave my answer like that. If I notice it could break down, both of them have 4 in common, 8 out of 15. Any one of those would have been fine, but just some things to remember with statistics. We didn't look at a graph. We probably would if we get a next chance to do another question, but probability normally comes, and you have to know how to read out both the table and the graph.